49. The last president inaugurated in the United States. The span of terrible days after the global comms blackout when the world was reshaped. The number of strange supernatural phenomena that appear around the globe. You're listening to The 49, the new series by Andrew Kooman. Get the content right in your inbox when you subscribe at the49.substack.com. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Welcome to the world of The 49.
People often asked him what it was like behind the scenes of the show. What was he thinking about before he stepped through the door? Flashes of every face on the other side of every door I've walked through is what he usually told them. But rarely that was the case. Those few quiet moments in the darkness, before the studio lights burned into his skin and the cameras rolled, he went back to another in-between point. Those agonizing days when he had to make his way back from the mountains, across the foothills, to find out why the world went dark. What's happening? It was the question people tried to answer in chat rooms. If they could get a connect, Reddit bros' final moments online, screaming the question with terrified taps on their keyboards, before the complete outage. Live streams on X and Twitch of panicked voices whispering into headsets. Are we next? The naked cry of fear, emitted across the world, in person and online. A despair even greater was about to fall. Heavier, worse than the fallout after the first horrible explosion. The silence was more than anyone could bear. So Diez learned it later. Was it part of the plan to terrorize the world with no information in the days that followed? No news feeds. No coverage. People alone to fill in the quiet when their connections were snuffed. Nature abhors a vacuum. And oh, how the silence and emptiness was filled. Diez was oblivious to it all. At first, he was up in the mountains, on a silent retreat in Kanaskas, his final fleece, an opportunity for heaven to otherwise redirect from the decision he made to walk away, for good, no matter what it would cost him. The feeling would still jolt through Diez's body when he reached for his phone in the present, despite the time that had passed. A flash memory to the moment he powered up his device when he got back to his EV. He had walked out of the small cabin where he had spent 7 days in silence, laughing at himself for comparing his experience to Moses coming down from the mountain where he had mapped out his exit strategy. Everything must change. How cute, now, that thought seemed. That he could shape his own path. That he could escape the game. He found his phone in the glove box. Dead. He powered it up with his external charge pack. 100 messages from 100 frightened voices revealed the fool he had been. 100 versions of the same question. Are we next? What's happening? Whenever he was in a dark or quiet place, there was an echo of that feeling again. The ground beneath his feet gone. Suspended in the air. About to fall. A moment of clarity. Everything is different now. Forever. All in a nanosecond before his stomach dropped and his soul reached out for something to cling to. Before his heart free fell. If he hadn't forgotten to power off his phone where he left it in the glove box, maybe he wouldn't have had any warning. As its battery slowly dwindled, messages came in while he hiked trails on his silent retreat. Fewer by fewer each hour the phone sat there, storing them until Canada went dark too. By the time he got to his ED, the world was more than 17 hours into the global outage, grid after grid rolling to black, being remade. How did it happen? Some say it all started when the environmentalists made the strange but calculated marriage with Hezbollah and sleeper cells of Western-educated humanities. Majors hit the streets with anti-Zionist revolutionaries. But for Diez, that was just another birth pang. Yes, the Middle East had been reshaped when Israel rearranged the furniture. Gaza, gone. Lebanon and Syria scorched. Tel Aviv shambled. But that wasn't it. Not really. If Diez had been in a chat room rather than on a mountain trail, he would have typed that it wasn't the new Middle East that started all this. In the recent decade of American greatness, humanity touched the stars. The off-world movement went from myth to reality through the optimism and innovation of an unleashed America. But it created a blindness too. For Diez, it wasn't the cockiness that caused an inevitable fall, the very cockiness that enabled nations to reach new heights. Some pointed back to the bizarre protests when climate activists started to deface the world's great art. Cans of soup on Van Goghs, splattered paint on Da Vinci. That the misplaced outrage at humanity's great treasures was what quietly ushered in the age of destruction. An inexplicable anti-progress movement that, like a virus, grew and spread in the dark corners of the world, while optimism was ascendant. But for most these, if anything, were just symptoms. Perhaps the first contractions in the strange and terrible world collectively nurtured. It wasn't even the first suitcase nuke that took out Paris. For Diez, it was the first phase, not the one after Paris and before Beijing that most people referred to. The first little emergence that appeared like an unidentified blip on a radar screen. The world blinked and missed it. But Diez was there. The first phase changed everything.
Thanks for listening to this portion of The 49 by Andrew Kooman. New content drops for paid subscribers every Monday at the49.substack.com. That's the49.substack.com. On Tuesdays, we release new audio on all your favorite podcast platforms. If you like what you're hearing, make sure you subscribe and to share it with a friend. Thanks for listening to The 49.